Hello and welcome to Together, where we have deep, unexpected, and meaningful conversations. We are the Bats, Bella, Ashley, Tim, and Simone. And we are so excited to be here with you guys this week. Last week was our first episode in the series. This is week 2. And we were blown away by your participation and your co-creation. So please use the chat to participate. We start with what's alive. So I'm going to toss it out into the field. What's alive this week, Bats?
We were chattering like you should have been there. There a lot is alive.
They're here now.
Yeah, that's right. A lot is alive for us. We just need to reacclimate ourselves to the larger room.
Mm-hmm. Start with so we tossed the I Ching last week and it was amazing. And this week we tossed the I Ching and it was to kind of get grounding for this week's session. And we are moving from the 22 into the 33, from grace to more that happens in the course of a day than you can process in a night's sleep. And the sage talked about us being natural storytellers who hold the threads of narratives in many realms of experience. So that was super exciting, and it makes me wonder what stories are going to come through this week. And just if you want to know, I have this book, but we also use other books. There's also the I especially love this one, and Ashley, I know there's one you like too that's really good. I just ordered that one too. Yeah.
Brian Brown Walker. I really like the descriptions of these, and this chart. Like, you have to have this chart if you're throwing coins, and you can throw coins with regular coins, or you can get actual I Ching coins, which look like this. This is heads,
Empty.
and this is tails, and you just cast. It's called casting the coins. You throw 3 at a time. I have 6. Maybe it's for if you lose them. One time I like put them in both of my hands and I just threw them, and then I was like, which one is the bottom line and which one is the one on top of it? But I play with it. I'm not really someone that goes by rules, but I did want to know them from the get-go, and I find that it's like a super old tradition. So I wanted this I generally do like by the book, because I feel like it holds energy when you're doing it the way that it's always been done. You know, it's tradition and it's kind of cool. Ritual.
Yeah.
I love those posts that you put up, Tim, about the talking sticks. That was fabulous.
Yeah, thank you. It's so fun to see that. And I'm just now realizing the timing of that, but that was years ago. Right. that I was playing with this myself, and it emerged out of my own contemplation on the I Ching. And here we are all this time later, and it just so happens that Facebook is reminding me each day of these posts that I prepared all that time ago. I don't know. That's kind of neat, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm putting in the chat some of the titles here. Ashley, maybe you can put yours.
Oh, great thinking.
Okay.
People can. Honestly, I like the one that I just put in there when I have time. And when we throw right before we start something, I often use the Cheaton Parkin book, the Book of Lines. And Ashley will put the book she really loves.
While you're doing that, I'll just tell everyone listening that the posts Simone just referred to, I think they're being added to the Unlock Your Design resource bank in the group. And once I've got them all assembled, I'm not going back. I don't know how to go back to find them. So they're just like, they're showing up, in whatever that reminder day, the memory shows up is when I save it. But I'm saving them, and when they're all together, I'll compile them on my profile so you can like snag them all in one place too. But it's just some fun to be had there, I think. Mm-hmm. I also love that the 22 and the 33 are really personal for me. The 22 is my SQ in my Gene Keys profile, and so the heart of it all. And the 33 is my purpose sphere, so the root of it all. Yeah.
What lines do you have? What lines do you have in the SQ?
It's a 4th line, so it's all about belonging for me in the SQ, and it's a 5th line in my purpose sphere.
I know a lot of people with it in the 1st line and the 2nd line, and it's interesting reading about it in the human design book of the line book. I can't remember what it's called, but 22.1 is called second class ticket. And it's like you always feel like you have a second, and my husband has it in his radiance and my daughter has it, and it's like they always feel like they come last, you know. And there's like an analogy where it's like if you're at like a 4-way stop or whatever and nobody's going, and then you actually decide to go, you're the one that's gonna get hit, you know. Yeah, I'm like, oh my god, that doesn't sound like a good thing. But my daughter Aurora has it 5 times in her chart. She's a reflector, so it's in an open center, but God, does that come out. I'm like, man, that is the high and the low of the 22. This is insane. This is like what temper tantrums are and what like girl emotional stuff is. Like my boys are totally different, and she is just, woo, she will just lay on the floor and kick her legs and like, you did not give me what I want. I'm like, this is insane. This is crazy. And at the same other end of the coin, she'll be like, the 22 is great at like holding the energy of the room. She's like the center of attention, and everybody's like, oh, I love you so much, you know. And then all of a sudden she's like, I'm not in the mood to deal with you, get out of my way. So
love that. You know, I'm going to just toss it out there because it really has been alive for me. At the end of our last call last week, the word boundaries came up, and I can't remember who was saying, you know, Bella, maybe it was you were talking about, you know, thinking about your time and, you know, saying yes all the time, you know, might keep you working till 4 a.m. And then Tim, you said something like, I don't believe in boundaries anymore. And then we had to end. And so all week I've been like, oh, okay, I want to have that conversation. So what are y'all thinking?
Bella, I could jump right in, but I want to make sure you get a chance to talk before I do my
No, I let you speak. Even if we kind of speak differently about it, I'm sure that at the end of the day, it's not that different what we actually think. So I'm curious to hear your explanation of boundaries.
Okay. Boundaries is a fun conversation because it's one of those conversations that is very pointed depending upon its context. So it kind of is important to define a context, but it's okay to speak generally as well. I think what happens for most of us when we hold the idea of boundaries in mind is probably generally similar. What happens for me is I imagine a house, me, with a fence around it. You know, these are my boundaries. This is like no one gets past that gate. Really, it's a matter of defense. Creating boundaries is about defending ourselves from some outside influence, an unwanted outside influence, right? That's kind of the idea that we're dealing with here. But what's interesting is, and anyone who's been following along with our conversations or with me or both knows that I have deep history and training in the martial arts. And one thing I learned early on is that in the higher forms of martial art, defense is actually, it makes you vulnerable, because when you're defended, when you're bound up, blocking against something, you can be easily broken. And so I knew early on philosophically that there was something awry with this idea of boundaries. And what I've learned in the time since is that we don't have to put walls up. When we put walls up, it's remarkable that when we put walls up to guard against outside input, we also wall ourselves in. And so this is boundaries is a matter of building walls around our hearts. We don't want something to impact us, and so we put a wall up, a defense. That layer of defense disconnects us from the pulse of life. This is especially true in relationship. Ultimately, what we want is to be able to connect to the heart of the other, to the heart of our experience, to the heart of this moment. Boundaries disconnect us from that. So what is the alternative? I found that the alternative is to connect to the heart. It's so beautiful and so beautifully vulnerable that it feels counterintuitive. We actually have to touch that soft core of ourselves in order to, it's almost like the greatest defense is complete openness. The greatest, there's that idea, the best defense is good offense or whatever. And actually, I would just say that the best defense is self-awareness. It's self-honesty. And so in this case, we don't have to create boundaries in relationship. We can simply communicate our needs. This is what we talked about briefly on our call at the tail end of our call last week. We get to tap into what's true for each of us and then stand rooted in ourselves. We get to speak confidently and clearly from that center without concern for being impacted from the outside, because we're not being impacted, we are having impact. And there's a big difference when the energy is flowing from you, from your core outward, than when you're going like this, no, you don't have a center, you have no balance point. So I'll pause there. These are kind of like, it's a philosophy that I'm describing here. I don't want to lose anyone though. So what do you think?
Yeah, for me, boundaries are not walls. For me, boundaries are membranes where things can come in and go out. So there's what you're saying is not against, what I'm saying. Somehow for me, boundaries has to do with communication, and it's about kind of setting the stage or setting rules are a little bit hard as well as words. But it's about, for me, boundaries, and maybe a lot of us maybe hear boundaries more in kind of a sexual context. So it can be basically, intimacy is more like it's kind of making sure that you are safe, and not even safe, making sure that you are able to open. So I might say, I might feel I want to completely open to you, but kind of my boundary is that I need to take a shower before, and then it's like, I'm kind of just setting the stage to be able to be more intimate with you. Or if I say on a call, I'm like, this is 1 hour call. And that's what we have said for this container, because then I can be wholeheartedly there with you. So that's a boundary that is establishing kind of game rules in a way that make it possible to show up with that open heart 100%. So that's what I feel more than anything else. And they have to do with communication of like, what can I play in and what am I not ready to play in? That's how I see boundaries.
It's great. The word is agreements. That's the thing. This is semantic, and we have semantic associations that affect how we interact with others. The word boundary is about walls and defense. What you're describing is an agreement. I see Christine wrote guideline. That's another good one. We're in relationship. You can't be in relationship with something that you're disconnected from or blocked. Even the idea of a membrane, like a sponge or something, I guess I'd have to give that one some thought. It's new to me, Bella. I hadn't thought of it that way, but my experience is that the more closely connected you can come to another, the more there is, the more richness.
And I want to say something there about the 22 and you being a 2-5. Yeah, a second line is all about merging. It's like, and it's all about that thing. And the 22 is about kind of like, that's that thing of like just falling into the portal. And for me, like I said, I think last time, that knowing where I end and you start. I have the 7th jinki in my purpose in a 6th line. So I have been kind of enmeshed a lot in my life, not knowing where I end and you start. I, as you, have a completely open heart center, ego center. So for me to actually know that there is this, it's not a limitation, but there is this kind of, like I say, a membrane, this malleable thing. I'm not closed off for you, but I'm aware that there is somewhere where I end and you start. And then I can decide to merge with you in sacred union or in friendship or in whatever. But still for me, that's like cells. When we are cells know where one is ending and the other is starting. So for me, that is not a problem. That's an awareness like you're speaking about, knowing that, feeling that, and dancing with that.
That's it. That's what you're talking, I'm thinking it's dancing. Yes. It is. And you can lose yourself to the dance, but there are always two parties. And that's what makes it beautiful. Yes. See, again, you said it at the start. I think we're on the same page, but we are speaking like about words here. I love that we get to put a finer point on this. Unfortunately, I think so much of the dialogue around boundaries is not aligned with what we're describing here. Because we we haven't understood where those lines are. What you just described, knowing where one person ends and the other begins, knowing what is mine as opposed to what is being imposed upon me, or knowing what is mine as opposed to what are expectations, knowing which of my personal expectations are superimposed from the outside. Like there are so many layers to this. However, it all kind of comes to the same, I think, to the same end here. There's a new way of looking at this, and it is a way that leads to intimacy. But you can't arrive at intimacy until you first grow roots into yourself. So it's both. And that's the martial arts thing. You know, it's not just about bending to the will. It's not becoming putty. It's about finding your center, establishing your point of balance. And then you never give it up. You never leave that center point. And from that center point, you can pivot and you can adapt, and you have everything you need to be as flexible as is required for any situation. That's the idea, is you're developing adaptability by means of balance or stability. And it seems counterintuitive, but it's the real thing. So yeah, I don't know. I could go on about this. I love it.
Well, I mean, for me, what's juicy here? Can you hear me?
I want to say, like, maybe when you speak, I feel like what we did yesterday with the 10th, with that kind of like, there's something here with the 10, what came through yesterday, that is really connected into what we are speaking about, like kind of walls and boundaries and wants and needs and then intentions. So I just felt like I wanted to insert that.
Yeah,
That's just Simone, right? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yesterday, Bella and I taped the 10. We did a soul conversation with the 10. It was absolutely fascinating to me. I had never experienced a soul conversation like that particular one. And there were a couple of things that were different. And that was that we weren't in the transit, which we had recorded all of last year. I would say almost everything we recorded in the transit. So we were in the energy of the gate, the key, the hex. So we're not in the energy of the 10. But anyway, I connect with the 10, and I usually ask, to communicate at the level of soul consciousness for the purpose of healing, for the purpose of wisdom, for the highest good and the highest vibration. And so connected with the 10, and the 10 was like, he flipped on me. He said, it came through he was coming through his masculine energy, but basically he's like, what do you want? What do you want from me? And I was like, well, to have a conversation. He goes, but you didn't ask me if I wanted a conversation. And you didn't ask me what I wanted from you, what I would like from you. What's your intention? He, asked me to state my intention. And, he said what he wanted from me. And so then we entered this co-creative conversation. And it was just absolutely fascinating to me, because he was not interested. The 10 was not interested in having a conversation where he talked and we all listened. He wanted an engagement and the naturalness to include all of us. And it was, because I'm courageous in that way with my big open G. When they talk, when I'm communicating at soul level consciousness, I bring through whatever it comes through. And when he's, calling me out, I just said what he said. And it was fascinating. And I felt so alive after that conversation. And, honestly, as I sit here sharing this with you guys, Bella and I debriefed a little while afterwards, and I felt so incredibly grateful. It made me so aware of, relationship, and what does it mean when we're having a conversation. And I think it will change the way I do soul conversation from here on out. And I'm not quite sure what my prayer will be, but there will definitely be more in it than, will you communicate with me? The 10 showed us that I have to show up in my wholeheartedness and be willing to walk the walk. You know, if I'm going to have the conversation, I need to be there in my totality, my naturalness, and not just be a receiver of what comes through. So it was mind blowing for me. It was really, um, yeah. And it was also interesting because we had some technological challenges, all in divine timing, right? So, so yeah, and what I'm, you know, what's swirling through me is responsibility. And I guess the 10 was, you know, asking me to be responsible for my part of the conversation and my intention and my capacity to receive what he would like. And, you know, the 10 wanted to have that conversation, but only if I was willing to, you know, be in a co-creative relationship. And when I was listening to you guys, what I was most attracted to and I find interesting is the responsibility for our engagements with each other. That if we say this is going to be an hour and it goes past an hour and we didn't say anything at the hour point, hey, we said we'd be here for an hour, it's an hour, until next time. If we let it go into an hour and 15 minutes, that's our responsibility, you know, to either accept or not. But if we don't accept it and we didn't say anything, that's, you know, the inward looking mirror. And
Yes.
maybe at an hour we say, hey, we're not finished. Is it okay to keep going? You know, but to not have that check-in, that internal responsibility. And it, you know, because I'm a 4/6, you know, it's hard to end things. I can feel the energy in the field. It's easy to linger, you know, and you know, so you know, I think that in this conversation, what's really interesting to me is how all of our unique designs and profiles and all the overlays and all these systems that we find so juicy is to look at how we engage, what our intention is, where do we take responsibility, where is it hard for us to take responsibility. And I think there's an integrity there.
I'm curious to hear if there's anything in Ashley that wants to be spoken. It's okay if not, but you've been notoriously quiet.
No.
No?
No, I am the party of no. I am the party of boundaries. I am the party of friction. Let's look at it before I let it in. And while you guys were talking about boundaries, and like that's something I want to work on, is like being more open and connecting in that way. And while I was listening to you guys, I was starting to make myself feel wrong for my experience and like what's natural for me. And what's natural for me is I've had to exert really strong boundaries because people have had projections, expectations, aggressions towards me where I've had to be like, no, 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 you know? And so it's been, I feel like I'm a little bit tough skinned. And so it's hard to get into me. And I think with me having the 6.5 as my life's work, it's conflict, diplomacy, peace. I have to weigh the scales and be like, is this interaction worth it? Is it a conflict? How much energy do I have to like resolve this? Like I have to decide, like, is it worth being right or is it worth being happy? Like I always have to come into things with intentions. And often, I mean, here's an example. I'm not a morning person. I wake up and I really need space and I need to wake up, and I'm usually constantly bombarded by my kids. Like I'm thirsty, I'm hungry. Like they always have something they want. And so I'll just get up and start doing that. And if they come in, I'll just be like, I'll shush them away, like, get out of here. I'm already doing what you want me to do. Like, just give me space or whatever. And my husband, he wants love. Like, he just wants love in the morning. He wants to touch, he wants to hug, he wants to like talk. He's not a super huge talker, but I'm always shutting him down because my boundary is in the morning, I need to wake up and get into my body. And I need that. And he doesn't get it and he doesn't respect it. And so I feel like the battle's always like, I'm pushing him away, and I feel bad. I feel guilt for it, but he's not respecting my boundaries. But I still feel guilt for it because I'm like, he takes it personally. He takes it a lot personally when my boundaries come up and I push him away. But it's like, if you would just listen to my boundaries of if I have space and time to breathe and get in my body, then it's good. But I have responsibilities that I've already, like, I have the kids stuff and all that stuff, but if I'm able to sleep in, if I'm able to be in the bed by myself, if I'm able to go to the bathroom and just freshen up and like have spaciousness to kind of like return to myself, I come out in such a good mood and people can talk to me and I'm good. And I think he recognizes that, but sometimes I take responsibility for not always giving myself that. And then I come out and I have to exert boundaries with the interaction field. Because I know I have to get up, I have to get my day started. I don't have time to lollygag in the bed and do all that stuff like that I would love to do, but I can't. And it's hard to express the boundaries to people sometimes when they don't hear it and they just I'm like, I don't know how many times I have to tell you, I'm not a morning person. I'll never be a morning person. I just need my space. So I feel like I'm usually exerting boundaries towards people in my life because they're always pushing into me and requiring something of me. And I feel bad and I feel guilty, but I mean, it's not wrong. I just don't know how to do it any other way.
Mhm.
So that's kind
all.
of my experience.
Mhm.
That's all. That's what I'm hearing. I mean, I hear the two primary human patterns that we're most familiar with, which are reaction and repression. And we learn this in the gene keys too, right? Every shadow expresses either in a reactive way or a repressive way.
Mhm.
So our mechanisms for response in these sort of situations are one of two things. Either we're going to fight or flee. So we're gonna go limp and play dead and become the doormat and just get overrun by everyone else's expectations until there's nothing left. Or we're gonna say, heck no, that's not okay. Nope, 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 nope. What'd you say, the party of no? I've never heard that before, but that's it. And so these are in the body keys. These are the patterns of discord, which leans in, and isolation, which retreats or withdraws. We haven't really been taught that there's a third option. These are very animal responses, I think, to remarkably complex situations. Anytime that the universe of one individual comes into contact with the universe of another individual, anytime that we relate, it's a miracle what's happening in that moment. So we're doing the best that we can. But the question is what you ended with, Ashley, like, what else is there? That's the question. So that's, I think, what would be fun to continue to explore, because there's got to be something. It can't be that the answer is for you to move through life in this way. I think about growing up in my family. I've been really fortunate. I grew up in a family where there was a lot of love, and the training in my family, I say training on purpose in this case, the way that I was raised was such that there was respect for one another. And that respectfulness was it was a field that we created as a family. So if you're in the bathroom and you use the last piece of toilet paper, you don't leave an empty roll on the toilet paper, you replace it. And why do you do that? Do you do that because that's the boundary that mom set? Actually, no, that wasn't the philosophy that I was raised in. The reason you replace the toilet paper is because you love everyone else in the family and you want the next person who comes into the bathroom to have what they need. You're like setting the next person up for success. Look, if every one of us could do that, if we could train other people, if we could train ourselves and one another, if we could come into this place where we're training respect, self-respect and respect for one another, everyone would have what they need. You would have what you need in the morning and your husband would have what he needs in the morning, because you both can have what you need. But if what we've done instead is either train that I'm the sort of person who can be bulldozed, or I'm the sort of person who's going to put my dukes up every time you ask for something, then this is exactly what people expect. And so that's exactly what you get. This is a matter of retraining first ourselves, repatterning, retraining, and then those around us. And I think in a family setting in particular, here's that fourth line in my SQ speaking, in a family setting in particular, this is it's home base for practicing this. And I don't see it being, I don't think the way I was raised was common. Let's put it that way. I think it was really special. But it set me up for a way of being in life that differs from a lot of people. And I think it's a really beautiful thing. I'm super lucky. So anyway, that's what I see. So when you tell your story, I can sense the in it, the desperation even in it. But I can also sense a ton of possibility. Because think about what it means for you, Ashley, and hopefully also your husband, to kind of come together to draft new agreements, new understandings of self and one another, and then to model for your kids the exact same thing that my parents modeled for me and my 3 younger brothers. There's a lot of potential there, right? And it's all held in the primary field of love and respect. It's actually very simple, right? That's the third option. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think having and knowing what, like Simone says, the come from is like, I don't want it to be rules. Everything has been like, the way that I've exerted my boundaries has been, here are my rules.
Yes.
But I don't, and I feel like that's so, like, I don't want it to be like that, but I have not heard another possibility. You know, it's always been like that. And this is what you do. And this is how you do it. Like the whole toilet paper thing. Like, I would love to approach everything I'm teaching my kids is, no, this isn't a rule, like, or else they're going to be like, when mom's not around, I'm not doing that. You know, when mom's not here to, like, I don't want to be the one that's always like, guys, this is what we do. And this is how we do it. You know, I want to teach them about caring for the other person and having that self-respect and the respect for other people. Like, no, I love you so much that I want to make sure you have toilet paper. No, I love you so much that I don't want you to have to clean my dish. I'm going to clean it because it's my responsibility because I ate on it. It's not like a rule. I don't want the kids to have all these rules. And I know that my son Luke, who has the 13.3 or 2 in his SQ, the one that's boundaries and wildness. I want him to feel like there's not all these rules that he has to follow in the house, but it's like there's the freedom and expansiveness to kind of be who he wants to be, you know, and with the guidelines that are agreed upon, and what they're, instead of them being rules, they're like guidelines, and they're guidelines based on love and mutual respect for yourself and for other people. So yeah, looking at it through that lens makes me feel like I can let the guard down and I don't have to keep reminding people of the rules. Here's the rules. Why aren't we following the rules? I'm tired of being that person. It's like not even fun for me. And it sucks the joy out of my life to be the one that says, why aren't you guys getting dressed and doing this? And it's like, I'm always managing other people. And I'm so tired of being the manager. I'd love for
so unsustainable.
No, I'm tired. And that's why when somebody comes to me and they're like, one more thing, I'm like, I'm doing so many things.
Yeah.
So like to be able to help people be more independent is also helping me feel like I'm not going to react when somebody wants me to do more things, because I know that everybody's trained to be self-reliant and independent. And if they need me, it's because they actually really need me, not like, I don't know. They're just so used to mommy doing everything. And that's how my mom was. Mommy does everything. I don't need to do anything. Mommy does everything.
Time to model something different. Time to start recruiting some help. Time to start communicating your needs. All of these things, it's all coming together. But these are opportunities to express love, and they are opportunities to model something new. But you can't model something new that you haven't ever seen. So this is going to be an amazing learning curve for you. Even just having this conversation is opening possibilities, I believe. So yeah, just along the way, remember to be gentle with yourself. You've been doing your best all along, and now you have new information. So you get to play with that information, explore it, and see where it takes you. But especially in a family context, it's an opportunity to express love. That's what we get.
There's the part of me that I'm listening and I'm thinking, I'm reflecting on the parts of my life where I have gone to problem solving, and understanding that sometimes people just want to share with what's going on. They don't need me to problem solve, or they don't want me to problem solve. And what I try to do now when I'm faced with something like something major, like Ashley's describing, where it's kind of a systematic change in the way things are experienced in our home or our relationship or whatever, I, I'm finding that questions like, hey, what else is possible here?
Yeah, good. I like that.
Because, you know, and you, Tim, you kept talking about the possibilities, and I use that question all the time. I ask the question, what else is possible beyond what I can imagine here, when I'm just working through something in my own consciousness. Just asking that question, what else is possible beyond what I can imagine here, opens up the energy. And then when I have the courage, the beautiful sun, I have to just say, is coming through. We've had snow and cloudiness since last Thursday, and I mean the sun is coming, it's so bright and out of the water, so you can, it's really magnificent. But anyway, asking that question just for myself in my own consciousness often shifts the energy. But then just having that conversation in that way, saying, what else is possible beyond what I can imagine here? Because this is kind of a logjam for me. and I'd like to shift this energy. What do you think? You know, like to get, you know, whoever I'm with on board with that there is something else possible. And it feels so soft to me because it just feels like a softer way to have that conversation.
And it's still being together. I feel like that's coming back to the whole the idea of togetherness. I'm a 5'1", and so if I'm not feeling empowered individually, then I'm going to be like, fuck this, like this isn't worth it. So I'm going to go and retreat. And the pattern in a lot of the stuff that I go through frequently in my relationship is we'll get to a point where it's like broken arrow. Like there's like, we can't, like, the emotions are too high. We're all saying the same thing. Nobody's listening. It's like, there's nothing else that can be done here. So you have to pull back, and we have to like reset ourselves, because like nobody feels heard. Nobody feels understood. Nobody feels whatever the story is, you know? And I want to be able to have an arsenal, and I don't want to say, see, this is the whole conflict.
Yeah, amazing, right?
Non-violent communication. I want to have a toolbox, I don't even know, of phrases that don't evoke this emotional response, because what else is possible here is so gentle versus, why aren't you listening to me? Well, like, there's so many things. And I find myself going into that because it was never modeled for me. I don't know what nonviolent community. I have the book. I've not been reading it, and it just keeps coming back in my face because as a 5'1", communication is so big. And as a 6.5, if I have an arsenal and not a toolbox, I'm like defending because there's conflict. And the conflict is just an illusion. It's always the possibility to be like this agreement, or this, like, we're coming into the energy of diplomacy. Like, we can figure this out together versus like there's a winner and a loser in a conflict, you know? It's a war. There's a winner and a loser. I don't want to lose. You don't want to lose, you know, but there's no coming together where everybody feels good about it later. So I'm interested in these phrases to help keep people together. What separates people and what brings people together? Because that's something that I want to really have in my back pocket.
That's really good. That's exciting to hear. Can I share one thing? I'm curious about Bella though. Like, is there anything, you've got to have stuff to share, right?
Yeah.
Anything
I always have something to share.
Right. I want to give you a chance to speak. I mean, there's a lot happening here, but you know, we all get a turn.
Yeah, I feel something like I need tangibility. And sometimes when everything is like up in the air, to just say what else is possible, you know, maybe I can go there, but with the person that's next to me, that would just be kind of like it's a kind of it's a hard place to go to. Maybe for a 4-6 we can always tune into that higher vision. And what's been coming through for me a lot lately in people that I've spoken with that come to me that has been in the concept of intimacy and kind of relationship, and maybe they're single, maybe they have the intention, and Simone and I were speaking about this yesterday a little bit as well. So I've seen the feminine, and this can be in a woman and in a man actually, because we all have feminine and masculine inside of us. So I see the feminine say, I need this, and this and this. So it's for like Ashley in a way, like I need to have space in the morning. I've told you a million times, I need to have space in the morning. And the masculine comes in and kind of says like, well, I want this, I want hugs, or I don't want this. So the masculine comes in and say, I want, I don't want. And the feminine comes in like in that kind of neediness, like, I just need this. Like, can you not understand, that I just need this. And for me, that is like, that's kind of the clutch. And that is what creates those walls and those, how you were describing that boundaries can be understood in mainstream, Tim, is like, yeah, that is just creating walls. And where I want to bring it back to is intention. And for me, intention is more tangible than like what is possible. And I think, it's what I would wish that what's possible would always be the way to go to. But I think intention can be a place to go to. And that's really connected to our design. So if we can speak our intention for our design. So Ashley would say, I'm a 5-1 and I have the 6 in my life's work. Like for me, it's important to feel like I have impact in my life on an everyday basis and that there is peace around me. That is my intention. If you are my husband, like I would like you to have the respect and the love to infuse me and infuse love and empower me in that intention. This is that's my intention. And then it's the kindness more than anything else, and the understanding of the other person to be like, my wife, this is her intention. Of course, I want to empower her in her intention. So it's not one person saying, I need this, I want this. No, it's like, how can we empower each other in our intention? And what I think is so beautiful with the human design and the gene keys is that we have help, we have keynoting, we have keywords to be like, okay, if I'm a 4th line, life's work, and I'm all about unity, like for me, it's so important to do what I love and to share from the heart and to feel like every night when we go to bed, there is a connection. Like that is my intention in the world. So if I can speak my design to my partner, I feel like that is really where the conversation can start. And then it's tangible, and then we're empowering each other. So that's where I've been feeling. And that like the intention is less provocative than the I need and I've told you, I want and I've told you. It's much more empowering. That's what I kind of felt like my toolbox to the conversation.
I love that. Understanding. It's about understanding yourself well enough to communicate what is yours and learning about the other. I think that's so beautiful. And of course, it does deepen connection. It does bring you closer.
The understanding part is so important, but if you don't understand yourself and you repress yourself, like I had to go through the who am I thing and then also decide like what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I know that my mom, for example, doesn't really know. And so she'll say what I want or I need or she'll say I need. Sometimes she won't even say that at all because she'll just be like projecting on them like you're doing this, and it's like, but she doesn't actually really know what she wants. And I think that to know yourself is really what's going to allow you to communicate that, because if you don't know yourself, then how do you know what you need or what you want, and how can you articulate it in a way that's like, it's just going to be fueled with like this emotional power behind it because you're so frustrated because you don't have the words to say it. And that's how kids get. When you're so frustrated you don't know how to say it, you get so upset. Like my daughter doesn't talk. She's 18 months old and she doesn't speak. And so because she can't speak, she throws fits. And it's like, this is how I'm going to communicate with you that this is not what I want, And so I think that when we understand our design and we know how to articulate our intention, like Bella was saying, that is what is going to come across and it's going to be received by the other person. But if you don't even know who you are and you don't even know where you're come from and you don't even know why you're frustrated, then how are you ever going to tell people what you actually need or want? Because you don't really know. You just know that there's something inside you that feels like this doesn't feel good. And it must be you, because when I'm around you, you're doing this, and then there's that blame. And and shame and pain that you inflict on the other person because you know, like, hey, here's the pattern. And it must be them because it's not me. And that's the whole dishonor, the 22. It's like, no, take responsibility for what's happening inside of you. It's you. It's me. So this is really, know yourself. Know yourself before you come together with someone else, because how are you ever going to know what boundaries are if you don't know who you are and what you need and what you don't need? And that's where codependency can happen too.
Yeah, but the pragmatics is that most of us, many of us are already in it. We're already in it. We're already in the weeds.
It's true.
You know that.
Pull back for a second and reset. Let's just reset. Okay, come back into this. You know, you don't. It doesn't even have to be a long time. It's just like I'm in the thick of it. Like now, I need to like. How do you reset yourself when you feel, you know, like I'm gonna go take a shower? What do you do to like reset yourself to get you to?
The body keys will help you find out.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely. You know what, to reset and then to really hone in on what's my intention here. What would I like to happen? How do I take responsibility for creating that or initiating that? Who am I, you know, if we listen to the 10, who are we communicating, and what keynotes for them are important to include, you know? And I think, you know, Bella, I loved what you said about the I want and the I need. We've talked about this before. And I feel like maybe it's just my profile or my particular design, but I feel like when I ask what else is possible here, my intention is to come to some new way, some new system. And my intention is to include the other person or the other people in the creation of a new system, a new way of being. So for me, it's a way to include the other and to open a new creation, to say, you know, this doesn't work for me, is all, you know, can put the other person almost immediately at defense. So, you know, I guess I use the tool of what else is possible here, because my intention is I would like something to change without making me wrong or me right or you right, that there are other ways that we can do this that we just haven't explored yet. And, you know, you also might not like this, you know, how has what we've been doing not included you, and how can we include, you know, the totality of us? And, you know, maybe it's bubbling to the top because in the quantum field and the consciousness, neither one of our souls or bodies want it like this. So I feel like my question includes me, and includes the other person, you know, that in a way that allows for there to be no need for defense or offense, or, you know, just change. I'd like a change. Is that possible? What would it look like?
It's inviting creativity. That's what I see the potential of in that question. You know, but both people have to be opted in order for that question to make any sense.
Totally.
You know? And so there has to be a degree of mutual understanding. I mean, as we're speaking, as you three were speaking, this process started to play out in my mind. I've never said this before. I'll share it and we'll see if it lands. But I'm thinking about codependence, independence, and interdependence. These are not new terms, right? But I think there might actually be a sequence at play here, because I think we all start to some degree codependent. And certainly as infants and children, we're totally dependent, right? And in that codependence, independency is a degree of disempowerment. And I think for those of us who are on a developmental journey, there comes a point where you recognize it as disempowering, right? And so you break away and enter into the space of independence. And I think independence is where that big question happens, the who am I question. Who am I apart from all these expectations, right? So independence is deeply empowering, self-empowering, maybe for the first time ever, except independence can be a very lonely place too. And at a certain point, you realize that this is a dance and you've taken a step back, a necessary one. But it can't end there, or else you end up being in the party of no, as you're just swatting everything that isn't you any longer away. And that's where interdependence comes in. That's where Simone's question comes in. Simone's question makes sense in an interdependent relationship where you have two capable, conscious individuals interacting, taking ownership for their garbage and also taking ownership for their relation to the other. You know, if we're in relationship, then I am responsible to some degree for all of you. You know, we're connected, we're together. It's a beautiful thing, you know? So anyway, I think that's what we're dealing with here. And that step back in, that's a step you can take until you've grown those empowered roots in self, until you've realized, okay, I am in fact a full and complete individual. And then you can move into interaction as that person. And you can, like you said, Bella, you can choose at that point to merge. That's what I meant when I said both things are true. We are both individuals, period, and capable of merging. You know, two can become one, but there's magic in it. And it is in fact an art. So that's kind of where I want to go at.
I love that. I love that you created like these phases, because it helps you know like where you're at. You can feel into, you know, am I in codependence? Am I like pulling? I feel like in the like it's not like linear either. Like when you move from container to container, like when we're together, it feels there's a lot of synergy. It feels interdependent, you know. But in certain relationships, you're going to sway in different ways depending on like how you entered the relationship in. So I know that in my relationship that I have personally, I'm in independence because I've had to go there because I've been so codependent before.
Yes.
And now it's like hyper independence. And I feel like it's a trauma response, you know, and we get there and like, how much retreat time do you need for you to feel empowered? And then when you feel that way, can you make the choice to take initiative to step back in? Because if you're never going to step back in, then why is the relationship there? And it's just, there's walls, like everybody like stay away from me. It's like this little, I'm in a bubble and you can't come into it, you know? So when you start including the other, it's like, you're also choosing not to go back to the codependency that you had before. It's like, now that you have this sense of stability, how are you entering into the relationship now? So I feel like having these conversations is so helpful, and having the tools and seeing what other people are modeling is so helpful too. I mean, it was so easy for me to come into our relationship because all you guys are independent and you're very conscious about what you bring to the table. And so that was the first experience that I had with conscious conversation and conscious co-creating. And it's just, I mean, I remember like a couple of times crying about it because I'd never experienced that before. You know, and I can use this to help me go out in the world and remend the relationships that were built on codependence or, you know, like wounded, like I'm independent from you, you know, it's like it's not, there's not peace there. So it's so cool.
I have the 44 in my culture, and I feel like maybe some kind of, you know, put this thing together, is that everything we're speaking about is about teamwork, and it's about wanting that teamwork. And I'm thinking that many times in a business sense, or even like a friendship sense, we come together as a team and then we go along, but then at a certain point we evaluate and we say, okay, this works, it doesn't work, I don't want to be part of this anymore, or I want to be part of this anymore. And we actually make that effort to kind of be a team and to come together and to evaluate. And what I feel is that when we go into an intimate relationship, we kind of think, oh, well, you're my wife, you should want my best, or you're my husband, you should want my best. But there it kind of becomes this gray zone where we don't really know who we are, we don't really know who the other are, we are growing and we're growing apart. So for me, that kind of monthly evaluation, a monthly intention setting and a monthly evaluation is really good, because the whole thing of deconditioning, what we are kind of doing together as well, is like my intentions can, like, they are malleable, like boundaries. So they can actually, and even I can challenge myself a little bit to have a different intention 1 month. And then if you can be there as my sounding boards, as I evaluate how that went. And I kind of feel like it's not unsexy, or how you would say that, to bring that into an intimate relationship. Even like sometimes it's really cool, like after an intimate encounter, like a sensual sexual encounter, to be like, what did you love? You know, what would you want more of? Like, it's really with that teamwork spirit of understanding each other better and create a more powerful team. So for me, it's not unsexy to communicate about these things. It's about caring. As you're growing, as you're deconditioning, how can me as that person in your team be there for you and like really help that path that you are on? So I would say in the beginning it might feel a little bit like kind of, but once you come into the rhythm, those are the relationships that are the most supporting for us and for our growth, and the ones that are not going to die out because we are growing in different directions. And if we are growing in different directions, like Richard Rudd says, when a relationship ends and there is like no drama, that actually means that the cycle is over. Maybe we have learned from each other and we're ready to go separate ways, but it's not this kind of resentment, drama way of coming apart. So that feels, my 44 feels like that's really important. Teamwork on all levels and all layers. It's really, really cool.
Oh, beautiful. Well, why don't we just, it's 5 o'clock. We said we'd be here for an hour, and what a great way to end this session. Thank you so much for joining us, the Bats, and being together with us. Thank you for all your comments, and we hope you'll join us next week for another episode. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
I want to read the comments. I stopped
Unlive.
I stopped it on Facebook, but I want to read the last comments before we get off.
Yeah. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being part of this.
Yeah, this was a special one. No way we could plan this stuff. That's the fun of it.
Yeah.
Really good.
Well, thank you. Did
we begin with the 40?
Sorry?
Did we begin with the 44 like when we started last time?
I can't remember.
It came in and then
around, yeah.
It's been around. It comes around.
I probably always bring it in. I love bringing it in. Well, thank you, participants. We'll see you next week. And Bats, I'll see you on Thursday.
Yes. Bye, everybody. Thank you.